So let me tell you some beautiful catchphrases about accomplishing goals. A goal is a dream with a deadline. And that's really what it is. A goal is a dream with a deadline. You gotta have a deadline. Because if you don't have a deadline, it just goes on and on and on and on. I know somebody that's very close to me. He's been writing a sefer for 23 years. I said, when do you think you'll publish it? Well, I'm still editing it. I'm afraid his grandsons are going to edit it. You know, it's ridiculous. You gotta make a deadline. And the deadline for this book was Hanukkah. I knew that 2.5 years ago. Rabbi Zlotowitz is a genius when it comes to promotions and public relations. And he said, listen, people are in the stores before Hanukkah. You got to get this out. Obviously, you have to have a certain amount of stories. So, you know, we made a 2-year plan. And we'll talk about how the plan developed. But there was a deadline. There was a goal. A goal is a dream with a deadline. And you know what? I love this expression as well. Setting goals gives you long-term vision and short-term motivation. Long-term vision, but short-term motivation. And you know something? You do things in small increments. And I'll tell you what I did. In order to get this book has 98 stories. Now when you sit down and you begin to think, where in the world, after 8 Maggid books, am I going to get 98 good stories? It's impossible. It's just impossible. It's so overwhelming. So the way to do it is in small things. You make a schedule. So let's say you want to get it out in Hanukkah, let's say it's 24 months from now. So you divide, let's say 100, by 24. How many months there are? How many stories you got to get? Let's say 5 a week, five a month. And you make a schedule. And when you make a schedule, all I got to do is get 5. All I got to do is 1 story, 1.5 stories a week. That's not so bad. I mean, 98, 100 stories is overwhelming. But you make a small goal. And then you write it down. So that when you get that story, what I did was I wrote down from 100 down to 1, crossed out each one, and then you see the progress. Now, I want to tell you something. I know that's only women here and you're not going to learn Gemara, but I just want to tell you something interesting that I did over the years. I don't have the greatest brain by far, and I certainly don't have the greatest memory. What's your first name, Goldie? No, but I don't have the greatest memory, and I know that in order for me to remember a piece of Gemara, I have to learn it many times. So my goal was, look, Hashem, I can just tell you this. I'm going to try to learn every Blat Nashas 10 times. And I'm just going to make a mark on the bottom of the daf. You know how you do the 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, the slash or whatever. And if after 10 times I don't remember it, okay, listen, that's the brain you gave me. But I'm going to try to do it. So every time I learn a Blat of Gemara or Nomad, I make a mark. And there's some that I've learned 10 times, 9 times, 7 times, whatever. And then, this was years ago. And then what happened was, ArtScroll, I asked ArtScroll if I could write a book on Bris Milah. And when I decided that I would write it, before I actually sat down to write it together with my mother, so I said to Rabbi David Cohen, I said, Rabbi David, I realized there's no way I'm going to be able to learn and have all these Siddharim if I'm going to start writing. So he gave me, that's why you got to have a Rebbe. He gave me something that I could never forget, that I will never, ever be able to stop being grateful for him. He said, listen to me. He said, what is more important, Torah d'Yachid or Torah d'Rabbi? If you're learning by yourself, or you're learning with the Chavrusa, and you're accomplishing, fine. You'll be able to mark off how many times you learned every daf. That's Torah d'Yachid. You write a good sefer. That's Torah d'Rabbi. That's a much, much bigger schus than your own personal learning. Okay, so I gave up a lot of the Siddurim that I had on learning, but I wrote a book on Bris Milah. And that was the beginning of writing the Maggid books or whatever. So Baruch Hashem, it's obvious that Torah d'Rabbi is greater than Torah d'Yachid. But that's when you have a Rebbe. When you have a Rebbe who guides you. And then you make small, and I'll show you something that I did. I'm a big believer in lists. A very big believer in lists. Now, my only problem is that I have so many papers that I can't even find where all these papers are. Like all of us, right? And every single pocket, and every, and then the pocket comes back from the cleaners. Like, oh my gosh, that's where it was, right? So I decided I'm going to make my own spiral. And what I did was, I designed a page, and this is Bris Matters, Other Matters, and Calls or whatever. And I went to Staples, and I said, do me a favor. Make me 60 copies of this page and put it in a book. Now, every day, I try to rip off the page that I did. And then at the end of the month, I go to Staples, and I say, okay, make me 30 more pages. And I put it in this book. And on the book, which is called my Busy, Busy, Busy book, okay? It's my own Busy, Busy, Busy book, okay? So it's the 3 B's. Now watch this. On here, this is my goal, this is my mantra. 3 A's: accomplish, achieve, attain. Now I've had this, when did I start this? In November 26th, 2013. So I've had this book now for more than 3 years. And this is where everything is. Now, when I finish doing something that I have to do, I rip out the page. And then at the end of the month, I go to Staples and I put in other pages. Sometimes I don't finish, so therefore I don't, I can't rip out the page. And there's still many pages that are not ripped out. But the point is, when you write it down, you see it in front of you. And if you write it in a big book, you're not going to lose it. This is hard to put in your pocket, right? Chas v'shalom, you shouldn't leave it on a train or a plane or in a car, right? Oh my gosh, that would be the worst. The only thing worse than that is leaving your cell phone on a plane. But otherwise, but that's what this idea is about. Write it down. And small goals. And when you write down small things, then wonderful things can happen. And you feel that you're accomplishing. And that's really what you want to do.